Well, the Army decided in 1943, December of 1943, that they wanted to put together a deception unit.
They used their talents to deceive and divert the Nazis.
And what's really amazing is the Army has no real idea what it's doing with deception. You had art students, you had working artists, sculptors, there were some people who had done set work.
They took the Broadway skills to the battlefield where they would put on a production.
I was learning how to camouflage.
These guys went out into World War II and blew up tanks. And when I say blew up tanks, I mean they inflated rubber tanks.
Whimsical? Yeah, it was kind of funny. But serious after you think about what we were doing.
One guy said, when I found out what we were doing, I thought we were a suicide outfit.
If they had any idea what was going on, I wouldn't be here talking to you.
They were incredibly effective.
Everything went right. Thank God, everything went right.
They maybe did more than other divisions that they were pretending to be.
We saved the lives of approximately, said 14,000 men.
It feels like a script straight out of Hollywood, and in many ways, it kind of was. Some of the unsung soldiers of World War II were not soldiers at all. In fact, they were actors, set designers, fashion designers, sculptors, and even artists, all who volunteered because they wanted to help their country. Their mission was very successful, but it was a different one. It was to deceive, to fool the Nazis. And they were so successful, they helped the Allied forces to victory. This movie stars the Ghost Army.
Dearest Helen, the walls are covered with pictures of the family and a fine-looking group of Nazis they are. The place is full of swastikas and propaganda, and strangely enough, religious paraphernalia too.
These letters are invaluable resources that give us a window into the thoughts and actions of people from the everyday GI to, the generals at the top.
The author of this letter is Theodore Ted Katz, a nationally known artist who was born in Syracuse in 1914.
He enrolls at Syracuse University in the 1930s, graduates from the College of Fine Arts in 1938.
Bob Searing is the curator of history at the Onondaga Historical Association, which houses two of Ted's paintings.
It speaks to the history of the city, and these are what bring history alive, right?
It's this talent that would catch the eye of his nation and eventually its military leaders.
In 1942, his painting called Volunteers is selected to hang in the National Gallery to honor the volunteers for the war effort. So this undoubtedly puts him on the radar of the War Department.
Which puts Ted directly in the middle of World War II. The story of the Ghost Army is not a long one, but boy, is it unbelievable.
Out of curiosity, I looked at the bulletin board at art school, and they said that they were looking for young artists for a new outfit that's being formed in the Army that we were going to be doing camouflage work.
The Army has no real idea what it's doing with deception. They don't have any doctrines, they don't have a manual for it. They're making it up as they go along.
In 1944, some 1,300 people, those artists and designers, arrive at various posts throughout the country, including Pine Camp, now known as Fort Drum, for training.
Instead of hiding something, we're trying, where that's really there, we're trying to make it seem like something is there that's really not there.
Officially named the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, the Ghost Army was originally divided into 3 groups.
So they have visual deception, that's inflatable tanks and trucks and artillery and whatever that enemy aerial spotters might see.
All the equipment, trucks and guns and big guns and tanks.
Another was called sonic deception. While training on Pine Camp, now known as Fort Drum, the Ghost Army would record the sound of actual troop maneuvers, them setting up a post, even construction work. Then, while overseas, they would blast that sound over giant speakers for all Germans within a 15-mile radius to hear.
So in the night, you would hear all this happen and you would believe that you heard something happening that wasn't.
And the third was radio deception, tricking the Germans into thinking they'd intercepted something important.
It was just another way that it took their deceptions to another level.
But while overseas, they determined a need for a fourth, and everyone got to put their acting hat on.
They set up phony headquarters, and guys impersonate colonels and generals coming in and out of the headquarters in case any enemy spies are there to see all of this.
They even hit up bars, pretending to have one too many, and then share some stories.
Well, I used to get a kick out of that because I like to tell them just stuff off the wall, you know. Something that sounds crazy, but they believe it.
But at first, the entire mission seemed off the wall.
Well, some guys, it was really hard for them. They couldn't understand why we were doing this.
And that grew fear, because when everything around you is fake, so are your defenses.
All they needed was for the Germans to realize or decide to attack, and there was nothing between them and danger.
We had no protection, but we were drawing enemy fire.
That was our job, and we did get fired upon.
They couldn't have fought back against any real attack. I mean, they might have fought back for 3 minutes.
But for these soldiers, just about everything went right. They did their jobs to a T over the course of 22 different missions.
They really carried this off with bravado and creativity and bravery.
From Operation Battenberg, holding 25 miles of General George Patton's line,
To keep the Germans from figuring out that there's nobody else there.
to the Battle of the Bulge, direction deception, to Operation Viersine. In March of 1945, it was the biggest and best deception they'd pull off, impersonating 30,000 actual troops.
And when those two divisions really crossed after several days of deception by the Ghost Army, they did so with almost no opposition and with minimal casualties.
It was all a big success, and they never figured it out.
In a way, almost too successful. So much so that this mission, the tactics, would remain classified even after these soldiers returned home.
But if you gave it up too soon and then got into another war, then it wouldn't work.
And indeed, another war was believed to be just around the corner, as the threat from the Russians was strengthening.
General Eisenhower commenting us on our success, and he had a PS on there. Any man that gives this secret up, I'll personally say that he's hung.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our honored guest.
Over the course of the next few decades, changes in modern warfare allowed for this mission, the Ghost Army, to finally be declassified in 1996, and a new mission would begin. A mission to ensure that each and every one of these 1,300 heroes would be honored.
I'm astonished that it's actually happening.
80 years after their heroics, only 7 members of the Ghost Army are still alive today, with the veil of secrecy lifted, along with family and friends of those who have since passed. 3 of them were in Washington, D.C. Thursday at the Capitol to see their unit, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, receive the Congressional Gold Medal.
Today, we finally will give long overdue recognition to these extraordinary soldiers.
They credit us with 30,000 lives, and that's a lot of lives.
A story of commitment and resolve, bravery and devotion.
A story that will live on for all to see forever, thanks in part to this ceremony.
Thank you for serving the nation and leading the way as masters of your craft. Congratulations.
The Ghost Army Legacy Project, which on its own has worked for 2 decades to ensure that this dream came true.
This is a day that has been a long time coming, but it has been well worth the wait, right?
To places like the 10th Mountain Division and Fort Drum Museum, which keep this history alive thanks to exhibits like this.
Yeah, these guys exactly deserved an encore.
And last but not least, the men who lived through it. By documenting their experiences in paintings, drawings, and photographs, it helped them cope.
You said it kind of killed time, but it was a therapeutic as well?
Oh, there's no question about it. Oh, yeah.
It allows us to understand.
They are a really amazing look at how the war looked to these soldiers who traveled across Europe probably more than any other soldiers did.
Stories of lives long ago. Stories so amazing, so unbelievable, that thank goodness they can now be told.
Dearest Helen, someday I'll tell you about this phase of my Army career, and by then I'll find it hard to convince myself that it happened, but all I have to do is remember the things that are in store for me, and I can stand anything.
The only regret? It couldn't happen sooner. Brian Dwyer, Spectrum News.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. For more stories in your communities, click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV for the latest news and weather updates every 10 minutes and more. We'll see you then.